You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. In today's podcast, I have an awesome interview with Kevin Gianni. For today's episode, we don't have Dr. Justin. He is actually at the Bulletproof Conference giving a presentation down in LA. So it was a little mix-up by the time he got to his hotel or however his Skype connection, but we're still going to have an awesome interview for you. Make sure that you guys go to beyondwellnessradio.com to make sure that you subscribe and get the latest, because we do offer up a lot of bonuses and specials, and you get the access to all of the interviews a lot earlier than just being tuned into iTunes. So make sure that you go ahead and do that. Also, go to justinhealth.com. You can also find that clickable at beyondwellnessradio.com, and that's where you can find all of Dr. Justin's links. He does do functional medicine, and it will be awesome if you guys have any questions for him as well. You guys can go ahead and leave him questions and also get a free 15-minute consultation. Again, you guys can also work with me. You guys can go to reallyhealthynow.com and leave me a contact if you have any nutritional concerns and wanted to discuss that. So on with today's radio show, Kevin Gianni, how's it going today?
Hey, Barris, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. The first thing that I always want to ask our guest is, what's your story? What kind of give the background of what got you into wanting to become healthier and then kind of trying to change the world, right? And send a healthy message. What brought you into the health space?
Well, for me, when I was younger, I played sports in high school, and I played football, basketball, tennis, and I was always really into fitness. So I was always working out. I was running. Just really focusing on that side of it. But my idea of a healthy energy boosting snack before a tennis match was a pack of Twinkies and a Mountain Dew. So, the nutrition side, you could probably say, was a little bit lacking, and add to that, I used to drive in my mom's Caravan with my tennis partner, my doubles partner, right after school, after our snack, and we'd smoke a cigarette, and then we'd play tennis. Somehow we made it to the States, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I could have been a lot better if I actually did focus on both parts, the fitness and the nutrition. And so that kind of spurred my interest. I met my wife after I had run a marathon, and I'd hurt my leg, and I was working a job that I didn't really like, and I said, we could be personal trainers, because I'm the one in the gym that everyone's always asking questions about. She's an athletic trainer. The two of us together, we thought could make a pretty good team, and we did. We were in Southern Connecticut. We were personal trainers for a bunch of years, and then we just got a little bit tired of working one-to-one with people about health. So we started to go online and started blogging about all our experiences, whatever we were doing, whatever diets we were into, whether it was raw food or vegan or exercise, body weight exercises, all this different, everything that we were learning about, we were blogging about. And that's kind of how this all came to be.
Yeah, awesome. It's funny, you have a similar story to me. I was all about athletics when I was younger, still kind of am, but that's what kind of drove me to be like, maybe, a big box of pizza isn't the best kind of workout food. So you guys were trying to get your message out to the masses versus just doing a one-on-one thing. When did you start to notice that the nutrition side needed to be changed for you? Because for me, I noticed I didn't really change my nutrition until I started gaining a lot of weight. When I was younger, I was like super lean and was able to do whatever I wanted because of my sports. But after a while, that my metabolism unfortunately didn't hold up. When did you notice that maybe I should change my nutrition as well?
Well, it happened twice. So first it happened when a friend of mine gave me a collection of MP3s, and I popped them onto my iPod. And when I was running, so I was after college. I was a personal trainer, and I started running, and just like running again. And he gave me these MP3s, and every once in a while I would bring the iPod with me to run. And so one day, instead of listening to, some music that I had, I said, well, maybe I'll listen to some of these MP3s. And the information that was on these audios was just so mind blowing to me. It was so simple, but so mind blowing in the same, kind of just space that I just totally, my mind just totally switched about nutrition. I just wasn't thinking about nutrition in that way. And the audios were by David Wolfe, and you may have heard of David Wolfe.
Yeah.
You may have known some of his work. And so that to me that put me into a really interesting space, because I was already healthy. I mean, I had very little body fat. I remember a friend, like doing the calipers on me, and he was just like, wait a minute. He was a personal trainer too. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, I've never seen anyone like at this reading. I think it was like 4% or 5%, and almost maybe too low, depending on what your opinion is. And so I just said, well, maybe I'll try this raw food thing that he's talking about, because if I'm healthy now and it feels good, I mean, I want to be even more healthy. Yeah. And so I went on this long experiment of veganism and raw food, and I wasn't fully raw for 6 years, but I was definitely vegan for that long. And it was an interesting experience. We got an RV, my wife and I, we traveled around the country interviewing different health experts, trying to kind of get to the heart of what the best diet for any human being is. And along the way, my health actually started to decline. So I started to get some adrenal fatigue, which I didn't recognize what it was at the time. I just knew that I was tired. I wasn't able to get out of bed. I was grumpy. I was just feeling strange. I just, I would fly off the handle quickly. I'd get angry at things very fast. I just didn't know what was happening. And eventually it got so bad that I needed to go to a doctor. And luckily we had traveled around and we had seen so many fantastic, health practitioners. I had a Rolodex, not a Rolodex, that's an old term. I didn't really have a Rolodex. I had a hypothetical or a imaginary Rolodex, I guess, of all these people that I could call. And so I called Dr. James Williams, J.E. Williams, who's not only a friend but a colleague of ours, not a colleague but a friend. And he ran some of my blood. He did some blood testing for me, and this was kind of my first foray into functional medicine. I'd known about Dr. Mark Hyman for a long time, and Ultra Wellness was a book and that really influenced me, as well as the one before that with Dr. Mark Laponis. And I knew about it, but I'd never really fully bought into it. And so Dr. Williams ran a whole bunch of blood tests on me, and when I got them back, the proof was kind of right there on the paper. Of all the blood markers he pulled, maybe, I don't know, the 30 or 40, the evidence was right there that what my diet wasn't healthy for me. And my pregnenolone was at a 6, which is like the equivalent of a 85-year-old man. And I'm, at that time I was 31. So really serious things happening. And I don't even know what would have happened if I had continued any longer. So that kind of, spurred me onto this, what do I do next? It's kind of it's really tough to be in a situation where you've eaten a diet for so long and started to buy into just get indoctrinated by, the philosophy behind it. And then you look at the numbers on the paper and you say, wow, man, I don't know, am I doing it wrong, or is this not working for me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that goes into, I kind of had two questions on that, but one kind of goes into a question that I was wanted to prepare for. And I noticed that even on your site at the renegadehealth.com that you supply testing as well. And this is probably one of those reasons why you found it important, because it was so important to you for your transformation and your journey going along. But just to explain to the listeners, why is testing so important?
Well, it's important for two reasons. One is a more like scientific kind of reason, and the other is just almost like a mind kind of just a chilling out kind of like mind relaxing reason. I'll tell you the mind relaxing reason to begin with. So, you anyone who's listening to this, or anyone who listens to health podcasts or watches videos or reads blogs, health blogs online or books or whatever, there's always this argument about diet, what diet is right. And there's so many camps. I mean, there's low carb, there's, high carb, there's vegan, there's Mediterranean, there's Atkins, paleo, there's all these diets that people are trying. And for me, that the blood test is, I kind of describe it as the ultimate proof that your diet is working, and it gives you permission to try any diet that you want. And if it works for you, you can run with it. Because there's one thing that I can't stand is sitting at the dinner table around the holidays and listening to Uncle Tom, who's read like half a health book in his life, tell me about the benefits of protein. It's like, because, so suddenly you're a vegan, you're in front of, your family members, and they're suddenly telling you, what you should be doing in your diet. And you've, been around the country for 2.5 years and interviewed hundreds of health experts. and they, their reference is like CNN or Fox News for health, so in order to and within that, when someone is challenging you about your diet, there's always this thing where you're just like, oh, are they right? You know what I mean? There's always this kind of like, wait a minute, maybe
where you're second guessing. Yeah,
exactly. And so the blood test really gives you a peace of mind. I think it allows you to continue doing what you're doing, or it gives you a pre-warning sign. So not when it's too late, but if you know how to read them correctly, as a good functional medicine doctor would, or even a health practitioner these days, everyone's getting into this, which is great, is that you can adjust your course before it gets too bad. And so, and that's where it gets into the second reason, the more scientific reasons, that our bodies, are trying to maintain a homeostasis. And if they're not maintaining that, you'll see it on the blood test, and then you can make minor or large adjustments in your diet and tweak just enough so you can stay healthy. Because I mean, the ultimate goal is to live long and happy and healthy, right? So by doing a protocol of blood testing on a yearly or twice a year, or for some people who are sick, maybe they need to do it even more frequently. What that does is that just allows you it kind of narrows your course, so you don't so you don't just shoot off too far in one direction and then shoot back across the other way. You kind of can stay within these parameters of optimal wellness or beyond wellness, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely. And for listeners out there, the previous episode, if you didn't listen, we talked about functional lab testing 101. But yeah, definitely. Okay. That's a really good one. I didn't even think about the peace of mind thing, where we can think, oh, are my markers right? We can kind of assume I feel good, but I don't know. If you get the blood work done and you get the salivary test and all the different metabolic markers tested, then you can actually see like, okay, I'm on track, or okay, there's something messed up that I didn't know about, and I can feel even better than I do now. So
it can save money too. I mean, that's another big thing, is that if your vitamin D levels are fine, you can toss your vitamin D supplements, or if your B12 is good, folate. I mean, like, B vitamins are fine. Like, you don't need to take your multivitamin or your super green grass herb, kind of whatever, and then you can look at that as a decision that you make to, like, so and I'm not knocking like super green herb stuff, because I take them, believe me, but then you can make that decision based on not like a fear-based kind of thing, like, oh my gosh, do I have enough? It's like, oh, I just want to add this in, and that that's coming from a much better place, so.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of supplements, and you talked about being vegan and raw vegan in the past, what are some supplements that you notice might be important for someone who's out there who's a vegan listening to the show, or maybe a raw food vegan? What might be important for them to take? Because there are going to be some vitamins that we know, like vitamin B12, they might be low in iron. Some of these nutrients that are hard to get in plant-based foods. What are some supplements that you think that might be beneficial for vegans?
The first thing, of course, is before the supplements is for vegan. Anyone who's doing an extreme diet, like vegan or raw food. And look, I think just eating a healthy diet can be considered extreme, just because no one else, not many other people are doing it, right? Paleo can be extreme as well, so I'm not just like calling out like vegan or raw food as like extremist. Because I think, in the outskirts of diet, there's actually some really good places that are extremes. First off, get your blood tested. Don't mess around. So you're doing something that needs to be monitored. It's almost like you've moved from just like surviving to now you need to be in the you put yourself in a scientific experiment. So you need to monitor yourself, and so that's like the first thing to do. With supplements, yeah, I mean, a lot of people who talk about B12, people who eat meat as well can be deficient in B12. I've seen studies. I mean, you never know with some of these studies, but I've seen everything from like 15% to like 80% deficient. So I don't know what the numbers is, but I mean, a blood test will be able to tell you, if you yourself are deficient and forget about whether, half the population is or not. Vitamin D could be one that a lot of people need to. For some people, a plant-based protein is really good, particularly if you metabolize fast. If you're a fast metabolizer, if you run hot, if you're more like in the Ayurvedic space, like a Pitta type body type, warmer, sweatier, more fiery. Those type of people definitely need some extra protein. You can get it from plant-based foods too. I mean, it's not like you just need to go straight to a supplement or straight to a protein supplement, but those type of people definitely function better with higher protein in their diet. And omega-3s is always the big one. You can get some plant-based omega-3s, or if you're just not vegan enough to be able to accept like krill oil or something like that, then that can be something that you can take as well. But there's also some plant-based essential fatty acids that are good as well from algae. And so those are like the main ones, but those are almost the main ones for everyone, right? I mean, yeah. It's kind of like, it's like those are things those are like the first like ticks off the dial if you need to like kind of get healthy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And like you said, that's usually going to be something that everybody takes. Like I take, a fish oil capsule, and my buddy who's vegan, he's going to take an algae thing to get some extra omega-3. So definitely important things to take. I want to go back real quick. We were talking about you're traveling across the country, interviewing different experts, getting different ideas. So two things. One, you're recording all of these interviews on your camera, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this massive content on YouTube that people can find. If they just search Kevin Gianni or Renegade Health, they can find your YouTube page. But second thing, how were you selecting your experts, and was it like just recommendations off the same thing, or were you getting a lot of varied ideas? And how would that change, like on a week to week or day to day basis, on how you ate? Like if you just went to one doctor and he said, "Oh, like kale is the most awesome food in the world," and then the next guy's like, "Well, it has all these things that mess with your thyroid." Like how would you go? Would you just buy a bunch of kale one week and the next week say like, "Oh, I made a mistake," and then the next week say like, "Oh, I need more"? Like how was this kind of journey going on?
I have this, it's kind of like this dual kind of a duality kind of principle about all this. It's like trust very deeply, but disbelieve at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this thing where I kind of, I just think it helps because believe me, we would go into one doctor's office and set up the camera and listen to something, and I would be just totally into it. I'd be totally convinced. I'm like, this is exactly what I need for my health. And I would go out and I make it a point to do my best. And I do it about 80% of the time. When I do an interview with someone, I do one of the things that they mention. It's kind of just like, it's just ingrained in me now. Like, that's what I do. And I do it every time I read a book too. You read a book, there could be like 1,000 things you can do. I just pick one and I do it. And then if I want to revisit it, I can. If not, it's fine too. But so that's really kind of what I focus on, I'm just like, one thing. And so you go to one doctor and they say, just like you said, eat a lot of kale, raw kale, eat it in your smoothies, eat it in your green juice, drink it with your green juice. And then you go to the next doctor, 2 days later in Cleveland, or, you're like driving up through Ohio or something from Columbus to Cleveland. And then the next doctor says, well, you shouldn't eat it raw because now it's going to damage your thyroid and you're going to be sluggish. And and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. And so for me, it's always, I always take this baseline of kind of longevity study. And that's where, with this new book that will be out in July 2015, I wanted to separate myself from like the minutia, like the little details, and then take a larger look at kind of everything and all our diets. And what it kind of comes down to is that we're, the thing that we want, again, most of us really want is that longevity. So that's that long, healthy, happy life. And so for me, what's the best way to figure out what that is? Well, it's just to find cultures that actually live long, healthy, happy, right? Yeah. And then see what they do and almost try to deconstruct it a little bit. Unfortunately, when you go to, to study some of these cultures, what you realize is that they really don't give a crap about nutrition. They just eat what's there.
Like they just
live their lives.
Exactly. Just like, oh, this is what food was on the mountain, so this is what I chose to eat.
Right. Which is what I think kind of gets us in trouble, because I've seen it in Peru where I've spent some time with the Q'ero, and the Q'ero aren't as long-lived as some of the people from the blue zones, like Dan Buettner's book. People know like the Okinawans or the Nicoyans or the Sardinians or Loma Linda, the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. But the Q'ero, they were longer-lived before they started coming down from the mountains up in the Andes into the cities. And I've been around, some of my Q'ero friends who like, they'll be up in the mountains and they'll be eating just like alpaca and potatoes, and like 80-90% of their diet is of potatoes. And then they'll come down into the city and they'll just, walk into a little corner shop and just buy like junk food. You know what I mean? It's just, and I don't think it's just a thing where just like, it's just food, and they just eat it. If, whatever it is, it's just available, they eat it. And obviously there's the sensory kind of, explosion that comes with, high salt or high sugar or high fat kind of foods. So, I always go back to this very basic kind of principle, like, all right, what would an Okinawan do, or what would someone from Sardinia do? And they just would eat like real food. You know what I mean? They just, we all know our friend Sean Croxton, his whole JERF slogan, just eat real food. And just eat real food. So with that baseline, it's real easy to kind of explore, but also just always know that that's kind of like that's the bottom line. It's like, all right, lots of plants. You can eat some meat. It's great. Don't need too much oil. You don't need too much. I mean, salt is okay. But you don't want to like totally blow out. Just your food with salt, and just enjoy your life. It's really kind of a simple equation.
Yeah. So that really kind of guides you to the just eat real food, from like becoming orthorexic and really getting crazy into this thing. Because I could guess if you're going to different experts and then like being like, yes, I'm gonna take this tactic and implement it now, and then you have a lot of people switching what you're thinking. There might have been a period in time where you're like, might have been a little orthorexia in there, right? Maybe, I don't know.
For me, yeah. I mean, I remember I would be sitting in the RV or even before, and I had this time I was a full raw food vegan, right? So I had this big bowl of salad. And I mean, this thing I probably could have fed a horse, right? And I would sit there and I would chew this salad for an hour, like an hour and a half sometimes. And I would literally look at the clock, and then I'd just eat, and then I'd be thinking about things, and then, I'd just maybe read something. I'm still eating, and I'd just get up and like, oh my gosh, I just spent, an hour of this day, like 1/24th of this day, eating this massive salad. And what was crazy about it is that, about 30 minutes into eating that salad, I was wondering what the heck I was going to eat for dinner, because I was just so consumed about my food, right? And that is orthorexia, so concerned about it. So what happened was I, after all this stuff kind of happened, and I had the adrenal fatigue, and then I started to go off the vegan diet, I kind of just was a little bit disheartened by everything. I'm like, well, if this extreme diet didn't work, the one that everyone's, not everyone, but the people that I was talking to were touting to be this, super powerful longevity diet, I might as well eat whatever the heck I want as long as it's organic. And so that's like the just eat real food, maybe like squared or something like that. So like doubled, and that doesn't work either. You know, I mean, there is definitely a sort of conscious moderation that needs to be put into play when you're just eating real food too, because again, you know, based on some of our genetics, I respond a little bit. Bodies just doctors like take the genetics too far. And they say, well, you know, we're all just so super individual. I don't know how super individual we are, but we're also, you know, there definitely is, you know, a collection of types, you know, whether it's, you know, 5 or 10 or 20 or even 100, you know, there's definitely a collection of types of people. So, you know, you kind of have to, you know, you can't just follow, you know, a whatever goes diet as long as if it's organic or not. And you also, you know, there are some rules that you can abide by that will help.
It's funny. Something that I like to say when I compare myself to Harley is like, oh, well, like a polar bear is going to eat a bunch of meat and a panda bear is going to eat a bunch of bamboo. So they, you know, one's like vegan, one's carnivorous, but neither of them are eating McDonald's. You know what I mean? So like, there's kind of like the individuality part, but then we know at a baseline, like kind of the jerf thing where it's like, okay, well, we know generally most people should eat in this type of way, but there's still your kind of genetic, individual kind of spectrum as well.
I think the most solid piece of dietary evidence that I found through all the research that I've done, all the interviews that I've done, is that the diet is not what's getting you to be healthy per se. It's what you leave out of your diet, right? So like you look at all the different peoples who are eating and living long. So the Okinawans, you know, at one point they were eating 85% of their diet of sweet potato. And then you look at the Nicoyans who tend to eat rice, beans, just typical, like, you know, Central and Southern American, South American kind of cuisine. And then you look at the Greek and Sardinian people who are eating, you know, just again, a lot of fresh vegetables and some meat. I mean, the medium's different, the food's different. Yeah. You know, so it's not like you can just pin like all your health on one food. It's not just like goji berries are the most important berry in the world, you know. It's like, no, they're not. I mean, we get there's blueberries, which are amazing, and they grow in New Jersey, and they grow in, you know, all these places that are like local to you know, Americans, but we ship goji berries over from China.
Yeah, it's funny. It's fun. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny that you say that because my girlfriend, she's Nicaraguense, and you mentioned that a lot of the Southern American culture is gonna be eating, you know, like rice and beans, and it's like totally different than if I was just preaching like, hey, well, you're supposed to be paleo and we eat meat and we don't eat beans or legumes or rice, and it's like, well, maybe that's what her family's generation after generation after generation has eaten, and so it's kind of sometimes it might be hard to change something like that, and maybe it's okay for her to eat a little bit more of that than I would be able to handle. So
yeah,
definitely. So I want to talk about probiotics real quick. I know that this is something that's continuing to grow the market. I don't really watch too much TV, but when I do, I'll see like even a commercial on probiotics, or even like the Yoplait yogurt would probably say something about like they have probiotics in their yogurt or whatnot. Could we talk about probiotics real quick and talk about where can we find rich probiotic sources in our food, and whether it's more important to make sure that we're getting it in our food first?
Yeah, I definitely subscribe to that sort of belief system, and there are probiotics out there that can be, you know, at least kind of like therapeutic probiotics. But for me, you know, getting my healthy bacteria from fermented food is absolutely the first place to go. And I've heard so many stories. I've known Donna Gates for a long time, and I've interviewed Sandor Katz a few times, and I've just heard so many stories about people healing from eating just a regular dose of healthy bacteria every day. That to me, it is, again, it's one of those things that if you were to put like, you know, the top like 10, you know, top 10 lists of things to do for your health. I mean, again, you know, I talked about what you leave out of your diet is more important, but probiotics is probably up in there maybe in the mid, between 7 and 5.
Yeah, definitely. Well, could you name some?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And again, you want me to name some foods?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, just cultured vegetables. I mean, just eating some sauerkraut, homemade sauerkraut, raw sauerkraut, not the sauerkraut you'll find in the plastic bag at the grocery store, is is probably by far the best. And you can put this on anything. You put it on your salad. You can put it on whatever you're eating. It literally just goes with absolutely everything. And that's like the first one. Sometimes I'll have some kefirs. I don't drink a lot of dairy or eat a lot of dairy anymore. Just to me, it just doesn't settle that well. I'm not saying that people should or shouldn't eat it. So kefirs can be really good, and it's always best if you make them, or if you know a place where. Well, let me rephrase that. Like here in the Bay Area, there's always someone who does it better than you, right? So I mean, you can always find it somewhere, but that's not the same for everywhere. And so if you're not in an area where you can access this, then you're going to have to make it yourself, because it's better, because you'll know that the bacteria are thriving. And that's really important. And that's what I get skeptical about some of the probiotic supplements, just because, a lot of the ones that you're just going to find at, your maybe even your local health food store, but definitely, some of the other places, if someone is walking into, Trader Joe's or something like that, I'd be really concerned buying your supplements there. But I question the amount of the effectiveness of these bacteria and the actual strength of the strain. If you're buying them off the shelf at a grocery store, and that's not to say that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that it's really good to add in. It's almost like an insurance policy to add in the fermented foods as well, so you can actually so you're pretty darn sure that you're getting what you need.
Yeah, and to have like a diverse kind of foods. And also, I know a lot of people sometimes, if they're on a more strict kind of diet, sometimes they feel like they're limited. Well, try some probiotic foods out, and it really enhances the flavor of your food as well. So I think that's a really good idea. I wanted to go into skincare and detoxification real quick. I know that nowadays there's so many new toxic ingredients put into just everything, and that are introduced to Earth because of man-made toxic chemicals that we've created. And sometimes we start to fix all of the things wrong with our diet, but then we're still smearing like horrible stuff on our skin. You, with your wife, have actually came out with a all organic, all natural skincare line. Could you tell me a little bit about it and why you guys came up with it as well?
Well, we were eating a healthy diet, well, at least the healthy diet that we thought was healthy, but we were definitely purists at that time, and to some degree I still am. And I forget, someone was we were getting a lot of questions. That's what happened. We were getting a lot of questions as we were doing our videos. People were asking, Anne-Marie, what do you put on your skin? And I had never really thought of skincare. It wasn't, as a guy, it just never really came across my radar. I was focused on food now, and I was focused on fitness before. So like skincare, I just didn't get it. I mean, like, you just use soap in the shower, right? And you wash your hair with shampoo. That's, that's my extent of body care. And so we started to look around for a product that we could just recommend. And once we started doing that, we realized that there was a lot of kind of shady stuff going on in the skincare industry, including when we decided finally not to actually just represent a line. We decided that we wanted to create our own. We went to formulators and we would get a list of ingredients that we would look at and be like, this isn't what we want. And they say, well, you don't have to put, a couple of these on the label. It's fine. And we said, well, wait a minute. Like, what on earth is happening? It's just like, this is a bizarro world. This is not how I do, business, or this is not even how I am as a person. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy, totally crazy. It's like underreporting your taxes or something. It's just stuff you don't do. so we ended up finally running into we went down to a spa, an organic spa in Arizona, and Anne-Marie found a line, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing." And so we contacted the owner of the company, and she said, and we said, can we sell it? Can we have it in our online store? And she said, no, we only sell the spas. And so we were really disappointed, and then kind of, hung up the phone. And like the next day, I was like, wait a minute, why didn't we ask her if she could help us formulate a line? And so we called her back, and she said, sure. And I was like, we were just kind of this weird thing, like, why didn't we ask her the first time? Why didn't she recommend that she would do that for us? Maybe she didn't think we would. And so we teamed up with her, and since then, that's been 5 years now. We've been providing these super natural, organic, like beyond organic kind of products that a lot of people are really enjoying, which makes us really happy. Non-toxic, none of that garbage in there, and everything's on the label. Surprise.
Yeah, definitely the way it's supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, and that makes a big difference. And you guys can find that at Marchegiani, which is AnnMarie.com, kind of like Marchegiani has the same Italian last name. So, yeah, definitely. So you also have a book coming out in the future, like you mentioned, called Kale and Coffee. Could you tell us just a little bit about that and what we should be looking out for?
Yeah, what this book is kind of the synthesis of my extreme diet, getting unhealthy, and then turning around and saying, screw it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want as long as it's organic, and then gaining 30, 35 pounds, even more, depending on where you started. Like when I was eating raw food, I was down to like 160 pounds, and then I got up to 223. So I mean, I'm not going to count like the 20 pounds from like 160 to 180 because that was like underweight, right? So, but I totally flipped the switch and went off the handle on the other side just because I was tired of it. I really was just done. And then, of course, when you're 35 pounds over your ideal body weight, you don't feel comfortable or don't feel good either. And it was very strange to me because I'd never felt that way. And I'd worked with people who were even 120, 130, 140 pounds overweight. And I just, I didn't really feel, but at that time, I didn't feel the way I think I can feel a little bit more for them. And I almost wanted to go back and call my personal training clients and apologize a little bit and just say, I didn't even understand, Yeah. And so when I kind of put those, that sort of hat on, I wanted to see how I could get back to being healthy and where I could have, the healthy things that I really like for my healthy lifestyle or my extreme diet lifestyle, but also kind of have a little bit of a, hey, you know what? I can do this, just to give up, some of the real strict kind of diet and have some of the things that I really just didn't want to live without. And, and for anyone who's listening, that could be anything. For someone, that could be a little bit of carbohydrate, it could be a little bit of sugar, it could be a little coffee, it could be a little wine, beer, whatever, whatever your thing is. And so I went back and I reanalyzed everything. I looked back at almost all my interviews and I did new research and I came up with this book that essentially just picks out the most important things that you can do to live that long, healthy, happy life. And it kind of puts aside all the other stuff. There's a lot of research about different foods and, particularly categories of foods like sugar and carbs, gluten, coffee, alcohol. And I analyze them and really kind of come down to the conclusion about, whether these are healthy or not.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned, not to give away things on your book, because I know that it's unique and different for everybody. And you had adrenal fatigue in the past. You mentioned coffee. How, for you, how does that kind of play in? How does that work for you? If it doesn't work for you, what are some alternatives?
I want coffee to work for me so badly. Like I want it to work, and I've tried so many ways for it to work. But for me, because I do tend to have adrenal type, just am an adrenal type, I tend to get adrenal fatigue very fast. It's just not caffeine on a whole is just not good for me. And even green tea, when I was writing the book, like I wasn't drinking coffee anymore because I knew that would just, make me a total monster. But I was drinking green tea, and I got to the point where I was starting to feel how I feel if I drink too much coffee over an extended period of time. And so I just I stepped back from that. When I drink caffeine, I get heart palpitations, and that's actually it can be a genetic thing actually. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's just, that side of my life is almost over. I still have a green tea every once in a while, but for me, I just know I can't do coffee. But with that said, for the book, I did interview Dave Asprey, and we did talk about mycotoxins in coffees, and I totally
mm-hmm.
believe that, and grains and even beans that we eat, because they do tend to sit in places for a while, sometimes before we even get them into our pots and pans at home. And so there are better options. I think Dave's coffee is a better option. David Wolf has a longevity coffee, which I think is a better option. So there are better options, but for me, it's just one of those things that it's just not on that list of things that I can still have. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely.
It's disappointing, and every once in a while I will have a cup of coffee, but I've come to the point now where I just know that I need to stay away, or else it's just going to make me feel miserable.
Yeah, definitely. So for the people out there, you guys can get genetic testing. I know there's 23andMe, and there's some other companies, but sometimes you can just tell. Like, I haven't done that test yet, but I can tell, like, I'm probably a fast oxidizer or fast metabolizer of caffeine, just because I can drink coffee and go to sleep, and just like, yeah. I have like the exact opposite result. And I notice some people, they're like, yeah, I can drink green tea and sometimes get jittery, and it's like, okay, yeah. So if you're in tune with your body, sometimes you just know. And I am a slow metabolizer of caffeine, so I have that mutation in my. Oh, actually, I don't know if that one's a mutation or if it's just normal. I don't know which one it is, but I have it. I have this slow metabolic metabolism when it comes to coffee. Yeah, definitely. So for the listeners out there, you guys can find Kevin at the Renegade. Is it Renegade Health Show on your YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's Renegade Health Show on YouTube, and it's renegadehealth.com on
definitely.
the interwebs.
Definitely. Go there. And then also Marchegiani for the skincare line. Do you have any other sites that we can find you at, or are those all of them?
No, man, that's it.
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff online and a lot of content. Like I said, you almost have 1,000 videos on YouTube. It's crazy.
937, I think.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it'll get with your podcast. It'll get there soon. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and then also, you have a podcast. Is that also called the Renegade Health Show?
That's Renegade Health Radio. That's on iTunes. Radio.
Definitely. You guys subscribe there as well. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And for the listeners out there, make sure you go to Beyond Wellness Radio, subscribe, and go to iTunes. Give us a rating. It really helps get the show out and boost our visibility to other people so we can get this message out. So thank you guys so much.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.